The drama surrounding the WNBA has quietly been building for months. But now, it has finally exploded into the open. And at the center of it all stands one name that has come to define the league's modern identity: Caitlin Clark. What began as tense but routine collective bargaining negotiations has turned into a full-blown credibility crisis. One that threatens not just the 2026 season, but the fragile momentum the league has fought decades to achieve. Behind closed doors, accusations are flying. Narratives are colliding, and for the first time in a long time, the public is being forced to ask an uncomfortable question: who is actually telling the truth? From the outside, the WNBA appears to be riding the highest wave in its history. Viewership numbers surged, merchandise sales spiked, corporate sponsors that once treated the league as an afterthought suddenly saw it as a legitimate platform. And much of that surge can be traced directly to Caitlin Clark, whose arrival transformed casual interest into obsession. She didn't just bring fans with her, she brought relevance, conversation, and cultural gravity. Yet even as the spotlight burned brighter than ever, the foundation underneath the league was quietly cracking. The owners, according to their own words, believed they were negotiating from a position of optimism. They claim they came to the table offering what players have demanded for years: meaningful salary increases and an uncapped revenue-sharing model tied directly to league growth. In their view, this was a historic concession, a sign that the league was evolving beyond survival mode and into something sustainable and equitable. But the players, through their union, told a very different story. For months, they painted a picture of stubborn ownership clinging to outdated structures, refusing to share revenue, and treating pay equity as a negotiable luxury rather than a foundational principle. That tension simmered quietly until the players voted to authorize their executive committee to call a strike. The vote itself was framed as a last resort, a show of unity rather than an immediate threat. Publicly, the union insisted it was not seeking chaos, only fairness. But the owners' response changed everything. In a sharply worded statement, they didn't just disagree with the players' characterization of negotiations. They accused them of fundamentally misrepresenting what was happening at the bargaining table. Not misunderstanding, not exaggerating, misrepresenting. That single word sent shockwaves through the league. When owners accuse players of misrepresenting negotiations, they are not engaging in standard labor posturing. They are calling credibility into question. They are telling fans, sponsors, and media that the public narrative driving outrage and sympathy may be built on falsehoods. And if that is true, then the trust that collective bargaining depends on has already been shattered. The Players Union, led by Executive Director Terry Jackson, has been clear about its frustration. Jackson has spoken openly about feeling that the league treats pay equity as optional, about negotiations stalling over issues that should be straightforward. Her comments resonated deeply with players who have spent years watching the league grow, while their compensation lagged behind the attention they generate. From their perspective, this moment feels overdue. A reckoning with decades of underinvestment and structural imbalance. But the owners' statement reframes the entire conflict. They insist that the very things the players claim are being denied have already been offered: significant immediate salary increases, a new uncapped revenue-sharing system, structural changes designed to ensure player pay grows alongside league revenue. If that is true, then the public has been watching a play where both sides are reading entirely different scripts. This is where the situation becomes truly dangerous for the league, because the WNBA does not have the luxury of prolonged uncertainty. Unlike larger, more established leagues, it does not have endless financial reserves or an unshakable fan base that will wait patiently through months or years of labor disputes. Every season matters. Every narrative matters. And right now, the narrative is chaos. Caught in the middle of this storm is Caitlin Clark, a player who did not ask to become the league's economic engine, but has undeniably become exactly that. Her presence changed the way the WNBA is consumed. When she plays, ratings spike. When she sits, they fall. When she was injured, the league felt it immediately. Not just emotionally, but financially. Attendance dipped. Engagement dropped. The casual fans she brought with her drifted away, reminding everyone just how fragile this newfound momentum truly is. For Caitlin, the stakes could not be higher. The 2026 season is supposed to be a defining chapter in her career. A year where she builds on her dominance, expands her brand, and cements her place as the face of women's basketball. A lockout would freeze that trajectory in its tracks. Prime years in professional sports are not theoretical. They are finite. You do not get them back. And losing a full season to a labor dispute she has no control over would be a cruel twist in a career defined by timing and opportunity. What makes this even more unsettling is how little agency players like Caitlin actually have in this situation. She is not at the bargaining table. She is not crafting public statements or shaping negotiation strategies. She is a union member, bound by collective decisions. If the union strikes, she strikes. Even if she personally believes a deal is close. Even if she wants to play. Even if she knows the league needs her on the court more than ever. and that reality exposes a deeper imbalance. While the union speaks collectively, the consequences of a lockout will not be felt equally. Veteran players nearing the end of their careers face different risks than rising stars in their prime. Players with overseas options or endorsement safety nets will weather a shutdown more easily than those living season to season. And Caitlin Clark, ironically, may lose the most in terms of legacy and momentum, despite being the least responsible for the standoff. The owners, for their part, insist they are thinking beyond the next season. They talk about sustainability, about ensuring the league exists, not just in 2026, but in 2036 and beyond. They point to private investors, ownership structures, and long-term business realities that cannot be reshaped overnight. From their perspective, rushing into unsustainable financial commitments could jeopardize the entire league. It is not that they do not want to pay players more, it is that they believe the league must grow responsibly to survive. Players counter that growth has already happened, that their labor is the product driving increased revenue, and that waiting for some undefined future moment of stability feels like another excuse to delay fairness. Both sides have arguments that make sense in isolation. The problem is that they no longer trust each other enough to meet in the middle. Fans are watching all of this unfold with growing frustration. They are tired of feeling like the league is always on the brink, always one disagreement away from collapse. Casual fans, the very audience the WNBA worked so hard to attract, are not invested in labor politics. They care about stars, storylines, and games. And if the 2026 season disappears, many of them will not come back. They will move on, and rebuilding that audience will be far harder than building it in the first place. This is why the Caitlin Clark factor looms so large. The uncomfortable truth is that the league currently needs her more than she needs it. She has endorsement deals. She has financial security. She has a platform that extends far beyond the WNBA. A lockout would inconvenience her, yes, but it would devastate the league's visibility and relevance. Without her on the court, everything the WNBA depends on becomes more fragile. And that brings us back to the central question. If the owners are telling the truth, and they really have been offering the changes players claim to want, then why has the public been told otherwise? Is this a case of miscommunication amplified by distrust, or is one side deliberately shaping a narrative to gain leverage and public sympathy? We do not yet have all the answers. The players have not issued a detailed point-by-point rebuttal to the owners' claims. That silence, for now, allows the owners' version of events to linger in the air, raising doubts and shifting public perception. If the owners are exaggerating or misrepresenting their offers, the union will need to respond clearly and forcefully. If they do not, the damage to their credibility could be lasting. The consequences of failure are severe. A prolonged lockout would not just pause the league, it could permanently shrink it. Some teams operate on razor-thin margins. A full season without revenue could push them past the breaking point. Fewer teams mean fewer jobs, fewer opportunities, less leverage for players in the future. What begins as a fight for fairness could end as a contraction that hurts everyone. This is the paradox facing the WNBA right now.